Hi, welcome. On this video, continuing with the theme of physical force and how that intersects into the actual dominance issue, um, I'd like to take a few minutes to provide context, a foundation to help people navigate, what dominance even represents. Because again, when you're hearing certain terminology in the dog training world, it's really important to understand, what moving beyond just the appearance of things. What role or what part does certain things play into, your decision making when it comes to deciding how you're going to approach the training process. Because ultimately, that's what is really going on. Even certain trainers who will take the physical force issue, and what they're doing is they're taking it completely out of context. They're separating it away relationally, and they're using it to actually market this ideology that is inherently flawed at its core tenet, which aligns itself with this interpretive narrative that response, aligns with the dog's state of mind within this, picture that's painted through incentivizing the dog to go into certain positions and then selling that as is onto the public with a complete disregard with looking at the motives of dogs. But again, this goes into this issue about why trainers will say dogs aren't pack animals. They're trying to distance themselves from this relational aspect, which is totally 100% part of a dog's nature. Dogs, in fact, are pack animals. But again, going into this issue about dominance, this again where, if you go back years ago, and many of these behavioralists who really lean heavily on the findings of Dr. David Mech, who's a fellow Canadian like myself, but looking at how he looked at, the at the response level, with dogs, how they interacted with each other, with wolves, with the pack of wolves, and playing off of that in terms of physical force, certain interactions or an idea, getting a baseline as to what that issue represents, and then taking from that, okay, and building that bridge just at a appearance level. I'm going to talk about that in depth here in a minute, and building that bridge into this, to build that bridge towards it, into this ideology that again doesn't look at how a dog's decision-making process is governed. It's a very one-dimensional view into the relationship. But again, understanding, okay, once you really understand how the issue of physical force is defined, how it packages up the depth of that relationally, okay, with dogs, how they interact with each other through that social bond, you begin to understand that nature doesn't reveal itself that way. It doesn't align itself that way to reveal for what we expect, okay, in terms of how that hierarchy plays out that way through, again, a certain expectation of a certain level of dominant activity that one would expect based on our own perceptions. But again, that's a totally human way of thinking, and what I've understand at a very deep level is that this is why again this whole dominance issue has been totally misrepresented, is because this group, and it's a large group of academics, have never undertook to study in a very transparent way how dogs interact, but connecting that dot to the dog's decision-making process that way. It was never done, and so everything that follows off of that is it's all about appearances, and again to have a kind of looking for a overt representation of how we interpret certain interactions without regarding that there's depth to that. In fact, that's why you don't see the amount of, say, fights amongst a grouping of wolves, because they already know. Okay, that's the point. Relationally, okay, they already know if they're going to, what, in terms of strength and weakness, they've already know whether they're going to win or not. Basically, when it's at a certain point. If it's evenly matched, you're going to see that play out. But how that dynamic plays out oftentimes is there's status, there's hierarchy is taking place, and so the order of status is happening without overt physical force on display like that, because the wolves already know. So they have a sense of that. That's just, and again, that plays off into the human realm in terms of, again, I tell you this all along, why it is that if you look at certain personality types, even in certain, say, professions, such as in a good a good kind of way to see it, how that translates, it would be in the police, law enforcement profession. There's certain personality types in there that have a command presence. You'll see a natural alignment. These high drive dogs, and they'll incorporate aspects of learning ideology in it. It's not going to have a negative consequence. However, okay, you go into the public realm and you're dealing with certain people who don't have that type of way of thinking, and their personality types, they need to really change how they think. That ideology has a negative effect. Okay, it isn't going to promote change. It's not going to align the motives of dogs at the intervention level. So these things all play out that way. But again, those who take physical force, and what they're doing is, you have to understand, their default position is inherently flawed. Okay, so you're getting, again, you're not. This is why when you get into this aspect of training, you're not. Doesn't matter. You go on YouTube, you go on Facebook, you've seen all sorts of debate, but there's nothing open and transparent about it. It's all debate and argument. It's about these people are locked in certain positions, and doesn't matter how many dogs are sacrificed on the altar of this ideology, they're just continue to push forward, because again, it totally implodes this ideology. Okay, this core interpretive narrative that is totally being misrepresented. Okay, so anyway, just something to think about. If you're looking to get a baseline on what is dominance, you have to understand how these words are playing off of this ideology. And people who do that are using it as merely a marketing tactic, oftentimes, to sell this stuff. It's not based in reality. Okay, it's based off of a very one-dimensional view, and this is why it can't hold up. I mean, again, over 50% of the people I help continue to come from these systems of training that promote training in some sort of learning-based exercise, and it breaks down. Again, I show this. I even lay out the spectrum of, as you move further away from identifying the process properly, just the level that it breaks down, how rapidly it breaks down for people. You can track it. So again, I'd encourage anyone, if you're looking for real answers, check out this system. The system of training I developed is one of a kind. It's totally unique. It answers the core questions. What is the process? What is these issues? What are they? I establish it. The system of training works absolutely great. It's proven itself for many, many, many years, and it answers the questions. So again, check out my website. Lots of great information. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thanks for watching.